At one point, I managed teams in various locations in the country. And I had this one particular team in Florida that actually we had two supervisors. One was over one area and another one's over another particular area. Well, when I took over, I said, we're going to have a Monday morning meeting every single Monday. Can't remember the time, but we were consistent. And then I noticed something. The two supervisors despised each other. I thought, okay, we've got work to do. This was the military. We were there to serve the military. I refused to get involved in their emotional despisement of each other. But yet, I tell you what happened. Over time, the two individuals, the two supervisors, learned that they needed to work together. Regardless of how they felt, they had to work together. And things started to gel. Because remember, when you have a supervisor that doesn't care for another supervisor, it trickles down to the team. So the team, even though they liked each other, they had to whisper when they wanted to work with each other. So it caused issues. But again, over time, these two supervisors began to work extremely well together. And so much so that when one supervisor retired, guess who walked her out to her car? The one who previously she despised years ago. And she called me on the phone. She said, Carla, hey, this is what happened. You know, we didn't like each other. We hated each other. She said, but you kept having us in the meeting. We continued on. And over time, we really became friends. She said, that's because of you. You allowed us to mature into colleagues that respected one another and then mature into friends. I said, yeah, because we have work to do. I wasn't going to get involved. She said, yeah, but our relationship is at this level because of you. So I would say, folks, don't get involved in the emotional issues at work. They're going to happen. And just continue to move forward because you have a job to do. So we're going to talk about teams with Miss Connie Sue. And welcome today, Connie Sue. I'm going to applaud you, Connie. Today in Lead Like You Mean It, people, Connie Sue is a mompreneur. First time I heard that was with Connie. She's an executive consultant and a late diagnosed ADHD professional. A professional with 15 years of experience in executive support, marketing, and project management. She empowers business owners, neurodivergent professionals, and moms to lead with authenticity. Let's dive into her journey from executive assistant to executive consultant and what it truly means to lead on the spectrum. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, Carla. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course, my pleasure. So, Connie, tell us about yourself.
Of course. So, like you said, I have 15 years experience in project management and executive support. And I'm a late diagnosed ADHD professional. So what that means is someone who has both autism and ADHD. And I'm realizing this is quite a common trend for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are noticing neurodivergent traits in children. But this is kind of a new concept. And so a lot of people in millennial and Gen X and even boomer generations are getting late diagnosed too. And I always knew that there was something a little different. I also struggled a lot in their corporate workspace, but I just kind of coached myself through it. But when I had the diagnosis, it all made sense all of a sudden. So all of that struggle became a superpower. So that's kind of like what I try to communicate with people. And it is labeled as a disability. And I want to clarify that for some people, this is definitely not a superpower. This is a disability. And in the spectrum of autism in particular, there's 6,000 types of autism. So
6,000. I'm sorry to cut you off. You said 6,000?
6,000 types of autism within the spectrum.
Wow. Never knew that.
Yes. So this is just my personal experience. And, but I have learned that, you know, the things from autism and ADHD, the intuition, the hyper focus, the pattern recognition became such an excellent tool to have for consultancy and also during project management when I was in corporate workspaces too. So I work with people who are on the spectrum or not even on the spectrum, but if they are on the spectrum, I have a little bit of advantage to help them with the extrasensory challenges that they may have. And also with mompreneurs too, I find that there's a little bit of a connection between neurodivergence and being a mompreneur. And that is kind of a term I made up. Hopefully it becomes a real word one day, but that it's all about balance, right? So you have to balance between the work stuff and your mind. And when you have that balance, when you can operate efficiently in your mind, you can do great things. So that's my message.
So my sister, I told you earlier, my sister was diagnosed ADHD in her 40s.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned about some people, you know, it's a late diagnosis, just like you. To me, now I'm open for correction. To me, that hinders a person's growth because it kind of makes them say, oh, I knew something was going on with me. Not so much wrong, but I noticed that I'm different than other people. Because I remember my sister was like, oh.
I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, it gives great clarity.
Okay.
And especially once you start getting into support groups or even like a ADHD or autistic affirming counselor, that's very, very important. But it's very important also to get in the right groups because there's a lot of people who are, especially in the counselor space, that they're just learning about how to work with these different types of thinking. But I think the biggest thing is that you learn there's nothing wrong with you. You're just wired differently. So that's the big takeaway from this.
Interesting. And I always thought, because I've got a couple of people in my family with ADHD, they don't have the odd. You got to explain a little bit more about the odd HD. But I have a couple of people in my family with ADHD, and I did not realize until I read some medical documents that my mother had ADHD until 2 months before she passed away. And I was shocked because I had always, and I even said this to her. I said, Ma, I've always thought that ADHD people were some of the most intelligent people in the world because you guys are quick.
Yeah.
You know, very, very, very quick. And I'm like, okay, give me a moment. But I remember my mom, she was quick with another thing, quick with the jokes, very quick. So it's different to see, oh, okay, an ADHD person, the ADHD person, being able to move forward. But what hinders them in their position in an organization? I got two questions. What hinders them mentally when they're in the organization?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things with this question.
Okay.
So within an organization, sometimes they have to present themselves as neurotypical or AKA normal, right? So this happens a lot more so with with autism, and with ADHD, which is autism and ADHD. But honestly, ADHD and autism can be very similar. ADHD is more of like how your brain is working very quickly, right? And so you jump from interest to interest, and sometimes you can't stay consistent on one thing. Autism is more about the sensory experience. I'm sensing everything, everywhere, all at once. I believe that's the name of a movie, but that is the autistic experience, everything all at once. So what happens in corporate is this thing that we call masking. And masking is basically survival. And many neurodivergent professionals fall into this masking because, like, let's face it, we all want to be liked at work. As much as we say we should all embrace our unique selves and we should not care what other people think about us. I mean, come on, we all want to be liked. And I'm not talking about this codependent, oh, I wish they would like me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, I like working with that person.
Yes.
This person is great to work with. This person, I love having this person on my team because we can move things forward. So we have to mask sometimes, because if the workplace is a certain type of thinking, then we have to kind of fit into that box. And over time, it actually becomes exhausting. It could actually lead to some other issues. A lot of masking professionals have reported anxiety, depression, and also this thing called autistic burnout. And that's not just like a burnout situation where, you know, you need 2 weeks off or rest. It's more of like your nervous system is so shut down from trying to fit into this box that does not match your brain, that it's like completely shut off. And so I have a classic millennial resume where it looks like I'm a job hopper from like every 2 to 3 years, I'm in a different job. And I used to have a lot of shame about that because, you know, my intentions were really to be loyal to the position, but I did not realize that every 2 to 3 years, I was actually dealing with autistic burnout. And what was really happening is I just couldn't be in the environment anymore. My nervous system was shot. And it was from high masking too. So I guess that's another term you can say. It's high masking. So you would have no clue that I was neurodivergent or autistic or ADHD because I was so high masking. And I was also intuitive. So I could also perceive the intentions and feelings of people too. So I knew how to kind of fit into that. So when I came out of the closet per se as a neurodivergent person, people were like, no, you're not. I've never got that from you. But what they didn't know is that I was incredibly high masking. And it was leading to burnout every 3 years. And that's just, of course, obviously that's not great for anyone.
Okay. What's interesting is I used to, when I worked in organizations, I would move on from an organization within 2.5 to 3 years. And it was simply because I was bored doing that job. It's like, it's no longer a challenge. I would know maybe about 70 to 80% of the position. But in my mind, okay, that's good enough. I'm moving on to something that's going to excite me, something I can dig my teeth into because I have to be challenged. So hearing you on the sensory side, you were burnt out. That's a totally different look on the resume. Again, on the resume, you think it's hopping, and you can see me, Carla hops every about 2.5 to 3 years. But yeah, I'm letting you know, I'm simply bored doing this job. But yours was far different. That's a different look. That's great for someone who's interviewing you to have an open mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I was in this like autistic message board the other day, and someone posted, I often think interviews are just set up so that people can determine if you're neurodivergent or not. And that was coming from a place of someone who has been scorned, you know, and you know, there's a lot of healing there. But it's so true though. Like when you go into an interview, people already have your resume, right? So they already know that you have the skills. They want to see if you're likable. They want to see like if you're a team player. And so again, that high masking comes on full board in interviewing, and it's hard to explain those job hops, because it's like, well, I was burned out 5 times in a row. That's what actually happened. And you know what actually happened? After 15 years, I became self-employed. Because it's just, after a while, it just becomes to be too much. And that's when you have to kind of move forward in your own strengths and just design your own life to do it on your terms.
Okay, so I'm going to step back. Tell me what the person said again about the interviews to see if you're what?
To determine if you're neurodivergent or to determine if you're neurotypical or not.
Okay.
Basically that you're not this person who can be perceived as a weirdo and someone who can't get along with others.
Okay. I'm with them on that, because one of the things I used to say, I can see that on your resume, you have the skills to perform it. This was all in my head. Of course, I'm not going to say this to the person who I'm interviewing.
Yeah.
That you have you have the skills to perform the position, and we may have called, a couple of referrals, but I want you in there for the interview, because this was my line, to see how you move and groove in your seat. I had someone in the interview who had the skills, awesome person, and I've shared this before, and then when the person was asked a question, the person turned to the corner of the room and answered the question. I mean, the person was asked, and the person answered the question. And I'm sitting there going, what's over there?
I do the same thing, actually.
Then, Connie, I said, okay, maybe this is just one time. Mm-hmm. Then the second question was asked of the person who was being interviewed. And the second time, the body was turned to look in the corner. And I'm thinking, what is over there? So in my mind, so that person was right. In my mind, something is going on. I don't know what it is, but I can't hire you because you're responsible. It was a supervisory position. You're going to be responsible for this position, but I can't hire you because I can't have you treat my employees by looking in the corner room.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I asked you to say that again, because there's a lot of truth in what that person said.
That's very true. I mean, and I do the same thing too. I'm doing it right now. Like sometimes it's a way to gather your thoughts. It's a way to communicate effectively, because the neurodivergent experience is so sensory. So when I'm looking at your face and I'm looking at all your expressions, and sometimes neurodivergents can also be empathic, so they can actually feel what you're feeling. There's an intuitive side to things too. So it's almost too much sensory overload that we might respond to those feelings that we get, or we will respond to your facial patterns. So we look in the corner because we're trying to create a stream of communication going out, and we're not trying to disrupt that stream. So that person probably could use some coaching on how to maintain eye contact, which is also a huge struggle with neurodivergent people, especially in the corporate workspace, is that we can struggle with eye contact. I remember when I started doing more eye contact, then I actually would scare people, because there's this other thing called the autistic stare. So it's like it's kind of like all or nothing kind of thing. So instead of looking in the corner while I communicate, and I still do that sometimes, I turn to the person and I maintain direct eye contact, but then it's too scary for them. It's too intense, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then I learned, there's this thing called the autistic stare, where it's like we're trying to be completely zeroed into what you're saying, but it looks like we're staring at you, but it's really just us trying to maintain eye contact. It's very common.
I tell you, how long have we been in this interview? Maybe 15 minutes. So you've opened my eyes even further. I did have someone tell me in the work environment, was it the work environment or personal? I can't remember, but I had someone say, Carla, stop looking at me. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? They said, because it's just too much. And I'm thinking, but I'm maintaining eye contact. But it was overwhelming for the person.
Yeah.
And I never thought of what you're saying. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I had one person who I know who is ADHD. She told me that, how does she say it with her face? She said something's going on with your face, Carla. I'm feeling. She didn't use the word overloaded, but in essence, that's what she was saying because of my face. I was just like this. I was too much for her.
Yeah, and sometimes it could be hard, like because you're trying to be, you're trying to give them an open space to freely communicate. But when you have no emotions on your face, then that can be also hard too. So I just think it's important for people just to basically unmask and just be yourself. Be yourself, maintain eye contact. And when you're yourself, it eliminates some of that anxiety. And we don't have to look too deeply into, I wonder if they think, if they perceive I'm weird. I wonder if they caught a little bit of we call it like a touch of the tism. Like, do they see that I'm autistic? I'm starting to let go of that more. Because it does come through a lot. We talk about ADHD. Sometimes they have like these explosive moments. That's very common because when we feel excited by something, we feel it. So like there's a great idea presented in a meeting. I love that. It's very expressive. And sometimes we could be kind of criticized for that. So I learned in corporate, in my high masking, how to be completely unexpressive, have a full, just like no expressive face. The other day, I was on a call with a client, and she had a contractor there, and she was talking about all her PR services, and I was loving it. And after the call, she asked me for my feedback, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this person put into words exactly what I've been feeling. I think she's great. You should work with her." And she was like, "Oh, I had no idea how you felt because you were completely stoic the entire time." And I was like, "No, I was really excited, but I can see why you say that because that's a part of the masking that I'm coming out of." So I'm trying to find a balance between stoic and too expressive, just kind of zeroed it in. And an odd HD coach recently told me, when you are excited, when you have an impulse to feel something very, very intensely, and you want to communicate that, take a moment. Just take a moment to step back and just like breathe, take a break or take a pause, and then go into what you're saying. And actually, great communicators all around, great speakers do this. They take a pause and then they go into it because you kind of need that moment to feel that feeling and then go into your communication. So lots of communication challenges and lessons for the neurodivergent person, and also how to communicate with others well and perceive communication from others in a way that's not offensive, because a lot of times we can get offended by things, but it's just a misperception. It's a miscommunication. That's all it is.
Because if we were on the call and if you didn't have an expression, I'm just thinking that, oh, she's just being professional and she's just waiting for her opportunity to share. It's something how we have different thoughts. Yeah. But if you're excited about something, you know me, I'm going to be excited with you. I'm in it.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting just back, that's something how we have, how we have our own thought processes with things.
Yeah, it's important not to overthink things. Just be yourself. Sometimes I feel like I want to be like, this is a great idea. Take a second. This is a great idea. Kind of go into what I want to say.
Okay, let's shift to the mompreneur.
Okay.
Because the first time I saw that months ago, I was like, that is cool. A mompreneur. Yeah. Talk to me first. Talk to me about the whole concept of mompreneur.
It's all about balance with a mompreneur. And I think it's a newer concept because typically we are told that, moms can only, if it's a stay-at-home mom especially, that is her only role. And that is such an important role. But what I find, especially with neurodivergent moms, especially with ADHD moms, is that they can do a lot and they have a lot of interests. And I also find that if they don't delve into those interests, they don't feel fulfilled themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to a lot of moms, and especially moms who later in life have raised their kids, and we had a chance to talk. And it's a very authentic, eye-opening moment when they say this, and it's not usually culturally accepted. So what they say to me is, I wish I did more things for myself. I wish I pursued more passions. I love my kids. I love how, after I raised them, they have become successful people in society. I loved, I love raising my kids. But now that I'm an empty nester, I find that I did not really pursue some of my passions, and that I didn't really put myself first. And so when I talk to moms now who want to start their own businesses, they tell me, I really want to do this, but you don't understand. I don't have any support. I can't do this alone. And I tell them, you're right. You can't do this alone. Yeah. And so often the story of the mom is somewhat of a lonely story. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try to tell moms, is that if you don't have that community to help you, to support you in your passions and also support your journey of being a mom, it's not going to be good. And you're going to falter, most likely. You have to grow in community. And I think moms and women in general are just afraid to step into community, especially if they've experienced things such as any type of backstabbing by other women. Sometimes women don't support other women.
That's the reality.
But when women support other women, it's actually beautiful. And so you have two options. Okay. You can find that community, or you can create that community. Mm-hmm. But it always starts with the first step. You have to take the first step. So I'll be honest, it took me a while to even get the concept of community, because I had so many bad experiences, especially with other women. And I had to put myself out there. And that's where it starts. You have to put yourself out there. And I started meeting other moms who also had businesses. And they're just like, I feel alone in this. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what if we both take a chance? I barely know you. You barely know me. But we can both take a chance. And what about we meet on these things more? And so that's where it starts. Or you create your community. But it always starts with taking a chance. It always starts with realizing that you need community. A lot of people feel that they can't manifest what they desire, but I always believe, ask and you shall receive. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to create that community, if you build it, they will come, like Field of Dreams. But you have to believe that it's possible, because it's necessary. And moms just cannot be in isolation anymore. So especially if they want to pursue that dream, pursue that business, they have to be in community to do that. It's essential for their growth. And there's very, very specific issues for the mompreneur, for the mom who also has a business or wants to start a business, that is very specific to that type of community too. So they need very specific support for those type of issues. A lot of that is just time management. We have to learn time management very, very well, because our life revolves around our kids. But once you learn that, once you can create a life, design your own life, you can actually create a better life for your children, in my opinion, because not only mommy is happy, but mommy is providing a life for you. Mm-hmm. And you can grow up in that type of environment where you have all your needs supported as well.
So give me a typical day for you and let's roll with times.
Okay.
From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, what does that look like as a mompreneur?
So I've learned if I wake up early, it really sets my day well. So sometimes I'll wake up at 5 or 6 before my daughter wakes up. And this is where I do my brain dumping. So as a neurodivergent person myself, I have a lot of ideas, and I have a lot of things to attend to. So I have to do that brain dump in the morning. It could be just an email. It could just be an email to myself, just like, I think we should work on this today. But I take that time in the morning. And then there's all the things with my daughter, Luna. So she wakes up around 7, from 7 to 8:30. We're getting ready. We're doing all the things. 9 o'clock, we are doing daycare drop off. So, she's with her daycare provider. And this is where I head into the office and I start doing my things for the day. And then I typically stay there until around about 4 p.m. And then I pick her up at 5. And at that point, we are doing dinner until about, 6 p.m. And then bedtime is 9 or 10. So sometimes I have help from her dad. Some people I work with are single mothers or they're single parents. So their day looks completely different. I do have the blessing of having her father around to help with that. So sometimes if I want to stay late at the office, I'll do that. But I always make sure I'm around as much as possible when I have her around me. And then on weekends, same thing. She's not a daycare, but I'm trying to be around her as much as possible. But I might do some work during nap time. That's very, very common for mompreneurs. We're doing naps, or we're doing work during nap time. So that is my typical day. Basically, my life is around her life, but because I have a business, I'm able to design it and create it around her schedule.
Mm-hmm. So what would you recommend to, coach, what would you recommend to a mompreneur who's the opposite of you?
What do you mean by that, by the opposite of me?
But the opposite, whereas you're able to get up early in the morning, but I'm going to use, what if I were a mompreneur? Okay, that 5 getting up at 6, no can do. I can get up, let's say around a good 7 o'clock. And if I had children, then the day would begin. What would you recommend? And then, you're picking them up, but at the same time, let me scratch that. Let's say that I'm home all day long, but the whole household, including me, will get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. How do I fit that how do I fit my entrepreneurial side into that when there's basically no morning? And I could, at the same time, I'm homeschooling my kids. What would you coach me on?
So that goes back to the support, that goes back to the community, that goes back to finding some type of way to include that into your life. You might need to hire some part-time help, just someone who comes in 4 hours during the day. Like, let's say you only have like a part-time thing going on. More full-time mothers, they realize they need more full-time help. So it really depends on the type of business that you're trying to launch. I like to mentor women on VA and OBM businesses because this is a very fractional service, meaning it's not 40 hours a week. Some business owners only need 10 hours a week, and sometimes it's flexible too. So if you don't have that time during the day because you're staying at home all day with the kids, you got to make that time. You just have to create that time. And so that's where you kind of lean to the support community too. I know a lot of moms who actually can share nannies, or they have a setup where it's like, hey, we have one person watching both of our kids, and we both use this time to work on our things at home. One day we can host at my home, one day we can host at your home, but we're both splitting the cost, and we're only doing it part-time because we only need about 4 hours a day, because let's say, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Is that help? Well, from 12 to 2 is nap time, essentially, especially if you have young kids. So you have 6 hours right there of solid time to work on your business. But basically for mompreneurs, you make the time, and you have to rely on some type of support and some type of help. You do need childcare. But it could be in a community fashion. It could be where you can still be around your kids. I love the option of working at office or home. I'm hybrid because, sometimes my kid is sick and I need to be with her. But a lot of times I just make it work because I have support. And I'm blessed to have, her grandparents around who are almost retired. And I'm also blessed to have her father who is very flexible as well. So it goes back to the support of the community. But you just have to make the time. You just create the time. As entrepreneurs, there's just so many things where, we say, I don't have the time for this. I don't have time for that. Well, if it's priority, you make the time.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Thanks for coaching me as a mompreneur. Okay, Connie, did I get into any of these questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's see here. I still want to talk a little bit about the mompreneur, but now I want to bring it in a mompreneur who's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So if you could elaborate on that, I'd appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. So very recently, I was at a doctor's appointment for my daughter, and the doctor came out, and she was, in this sensory overload environment. She was stimming very hard. So stimming is it's like when an autistic is on sensory overload, and it's like little repetitive habits that they do that can help them basically regulate. So for her, she does this thing where she claps, and then she does this thing with her hands. And the doctor walked in, and he was like, she's autistic. Can't you see that? It's obvious. And I was like, she's also 2. And I'm not going to sit here and diagnose my daughter, but if you think that she's autistic, then we'll get her evaluated. Well, we started getting her evaluated, and it's very clear that she's actually probably autistic as well. So what that happened for me was I started looking at traits in myself as an autistic person, and that translated to, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure my daughter gets the support that she needs for her autism, if that's the case. And I think I was telling you this earlier, I need support too.
Yeah.
I need support because she needs support, but I need a support on how to parent this child while also dealing with my neurodivergence. And it has to be both of those things, because I don't want her growing up with, mommy was always on sensory overload and she just wasn't there for me. That's not going to happen. So now I'm getting attuned to what she needs. I can see why she was stimming so hard in the doctor's office. It's because she was surrounded by so many fluorescent lights, which can be a thing for autistic people. They're just, when it comes to anything like sudden sounds, like sometimes I heard someone that vacuuming actually hurts their nervous system. They're so sensitive to even the sound of vacuuming, but they can go to a concert and they're fine. So it's different sounds. So now I'm learning, I'm observing, I'm studying her. What are things that put her into sensory overload, and what are things that calm her down, and then create those environments for her. And then I need to seek out that support as well on how to parent her. But also, it's kind of like parenting the little girl in me too, who was autistic but didn't get that support. So I'm learning how to do that for myself. And it's a journey. So it all goes back to the support. Support in community, support from professionals, and support from your family and friends who know these things. And they can only know these things when you talk about them, when you become authentic, and when you really step out. And people started getting it when I said I'm autistic and ADHD, and this is what I need from you, if possible. And people started responding to that more. So the vacuum doesn't bother me or anything, but there are certain sounds that does. I remember like someone had a phone ringer around me that was just like, oh my gosh, when it would go off, it like, it wasn't just me either. There was other people around that were just like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this ringtone. And so, but that was like a personal relationship. So that's something I could tell them about. You can't always do that, but sometimes you just have to state what you need. And women have a really hard time with that too. You got to state what you need.
Yeah. When you were talking about the certain sounds, but yet you could sit at a concert, it made me think of, I remember my mom moved in with me, and there's a phone in the kitchen, and it would just go off. People will call it, and sometimes, I would answer, sometimes not. But when she was here by herself during the day and I was at work, the phone would ring, and it drove her crazy. But yet she's the same person. My mother loved the band, the Eagles. She had no problem going to a concert and sitting there and listening to a rock concert for 2.5 hours, because that was like the greatest thing for her.
Yeah.
That phone drove her crazy during the day. And I'm like, what is the deal? It's just a phone. But with you sharing this now, it's made me think, okay, it was just that particular sound was too much for her. Interesting. So
it can sometimes hurt people, like literally physically. They can feel hurt. They can feel pain when they hear certain sounds. But just like your mom, I love a concert. I used to go to like EDM warehouse, raves, and that was totally fine. I wasn't in sensory overload with that, but I don't know. I can't explain it, but the ringtone drove me crazy. So
yeah. I remember that. She would just freak out, and I'm like, it's a phone. What's going on with you? And nobody's here during the day but you, the dog, and the phone. But she couldn't take it.
Meanwhile, her nervous system was probably like, blah.
Yeah,
she could deal with it.
Yeah. Never knew that. Well, Connie, this has been eye-opening for me, and I thank you for this time. Thank you for explaining about Odd HD, make sure that I get it correctly, mompreneur, and then all of it together like this big pie. If there's a mompreneur who's on the spectrum, I mean, you've given us a huge insight into an area that I think most of us simply don't think of. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for explaining it and breaking it down for people to understand, particularly me. So thank you for this time. Thank you all for joining Lead Like You Mean It, people. In 2 weeks, we will have Ms. Ronalyn Wirtz. I believe it's in 2 weeks. It'll be the second Wednesday of December. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and Lead Like You Mean It, people. Have a good day.